You are sitting in a quiet room. Maybe it's late, and the house has that particular stillness where you can almost hear the silence itself. And then something happens. A door slams somewhere down the hall, and the sound reaches you. You heard it travel. You felt it almost. The noise left that door and crossed the air between you and arrived at your ear. And that is so obvious, so self-evident, so thoroughly confirmed by every moment of your hearing life that it has never once occurred to you to question it. Sound travels through air. Everyone knows this. You learned it in school. You've seen the diagrams, little arrows moving from a source to an ear, little waves rippling outward like rings on a pond. The medium is air. The sound moves through the medium. Simple. But here is the question I want you to hold before we go any further. What if nothing, not one molecule, not one particle of air, actually travels from that slamming door to your ear? What if the thing you call sound traveling through air involves precisely zero air making that journey, and the word travel is, in this context, not just imprecise, but completely, fundamentally wrong? What is actually moving? Let me tell you something. The mistake we make about sound is the same mistake people made for centuries about waves on water. You watch a wave move across the surface of the ocean, and it looks like water is moving. It looks like a rolling mass of ocean is crossing the sea toward you. But drop a cork on the water and watch what it does. The cork doesn't move toward shore with the wave. It bobs up and down. It goes in a small circle and returns to almost exactly where it started. The wave moved. The water didn't. If you want to understand how the universe actually works, not just how it looks, but how it works, hit that subscribe button. Let's find things out together. Now, air. We need to think carefully about what air actually is because we almost never do. Air is not a smooth, continuous fluid the way it looks from the inside of your experience. Air is a crowd. It is an almost incomprehensibly dense crowd of individual molecules, mostly nitrogen and oxygen, bouncing off each other and off every surface they encounter at speeds of around 1,000 feet per second at room temperature. These molecules are small and they are fast and they are colliding constantly. In every cubic centimeter of the air around you right now, there are approximately 27 million trillion molecules, all in continuous, violent, random motion. You are sitting inside a storm of invisible collisions, and you don't feel it because the storm is perfectly uniform in every direction, so it cancels itself out. This is the medium sound moves through, not a smooth river, a crowd. Stay with me because this is where the real picture starts to form. When that door slams, the door surface pushes against the air molecules immediately in front of it. Not all the air in the room, just the ones right there pressed against the door face. Those molecules get shoved. They were already moving fast in every direction. Now they get an extra push in one particular direction, away from the door. So they slam into their neighbors with more force than usual. Those neighbors, having been hit harder than normal, bounce back and hit their neighbors harder than normal, and so on, spreading outward from the door in all directions at around 767 miles per hour. Do you see what happens? No molecule travels from the door to your ear. Each molecule just bumps into the next one. The disturbance travels. The pattern travels. The compression, this region of slightly higher than normal pressure, propagates outward like the ripple from a stone dropped in still water, while the water itself goes nowhere. This is the part that keeps me up at night. Let's be honest about what this means. When you hear your name called from across a room, the air that touched the speaker's mouth never reaches you. The air near your ear has been sitting near your ear the whole time, locally, vibrating in place. What arrived at your ear was not a substance, it was information, a pattern, a sequence of pressure variations passed from molecule to molecule across the room like a whisper passed through a crowd, each person in the crowd leaning to the next, not walking across the room themselves. The message traveled. The messengers stayed put. Now I want to take this deeper because there's a subtlety here that changes everything. Think about what I just said. The air molecules are all moving randomly at around 1,000 feet per second already. Sound adds to this a tiny organized wobble on top of all that chaos. The sound is the organized part, the part where the randomness gets slightly nudged in one direction, creating a pressure difference which propagates. The sound is not a thing inside the air. The sound is a property of the air, a pattern of organization temporarily imposed on the perpetual disorder. Here is the analogy I want you to hold. Imagine a stadium full of people doing the wave. One person stands up and sits down, triggers the next person, then the next, and the wave travels around the stadium. The wave is real. You can see it. You can measure its speed. You can describe its shape. But there is no wave substance traveling through the crowd. There is no group of people running around the stadium. There is only the pattern of behavior propagating from one stationary person to the next. Sound is the stadium wave of air. The wave is real. The travel is real. But the traveler is nobody. There is no traveler. What moves is the instruction to move. Now let's take this a step further, because the same logic applies everywhere, and when you see it, you can't unsee it. Light, for a long time, physicists thought it needed a medium too, something to wave through, the way sound waves through air. They called it the luminiferous ether. They spent decades looking for it, building experiments to measure the Earth's motion through it. And in 1887, Michelson and Morley found nothing. No ether, no medium. Light, it turned out, doesn't need a substance to wave through. Light is not a disturbance in a medium. Light is a disturbance in the electromagnetic field itself, which exists everywhere and is not made of anything we can point to. So we have two different things we call waves. Sound waves, which are mechanical, they're pressure patterns in a substance, and they need that substance. Without air, without water, without something made of molecules to bump into each other, there is no sound. The famous line is absolutely right. In space, no one can hear you scream. Not because space is large, but because there are no molecules to pass the pattern. The pattern has nothing to travel through. And then there are electromagnetic waves, light, radio, X-rays, which are not patterns in a substance at all, but oscillations in the field itself, which need nothing to propagate through and travel happily through the vacuum of space at 186,000 miles per second. This distinction is one of the deepest in all of physics. One kind of wave is a pattern in matter. The other kind of wave is a pattern in a field. And a field is not matter. A field is something different, a property of space itself, a quantity that has a value at every point in the universe, not made of particles, not made of substance, existing as a kind of invisible numerical texture spread across everything. Do you see what happens? The question, what is moving, turns out to have two completely different answers depending on which type of wave you're asking about. For sound, the pattern is moving, but the individual air molecules are not. For light, the field is oscillating and nothing material is moving at all because there is no material involved. Let's be honest about where this leaves us with the word travel. We use it for both cases, sound travels, light travels, but what we mean by travel, some object moving from here to there, is accurate in neither case. In sound, no object makes the journey. In light, there's no object and no medium and no journey through anything material whatsoever. The word travel survives because it correctly describes the behavior from the outside, the observable consequence. The pattern begins here and it ends there, and there is a measurable time between the beginning and the end. So in some useful sense, something did go from here to there. But if you ask what that something was, the answer is genuinely strange. It was a difference. It was a change. It was a relationship between the state of things now and the state of things a moment ago. The thing that traveled was a deviation from equilibrium. Now here is the uncomfortable implication, and I want you to sit with it. Every sound you have ever heard was not a substance arriving at your ear. It was a pattern of organized disturbance propagating through an otherwise disordered medium. Your name, spoken by someone who loves you, that sound reached you not as a piece of their voice traveling across the room, but as a ripple in the chaos of air molecules, carrying the shape of what they said encoded in pressure variations. And your eardrum, a membrane about as thick as a piece of tissue paper, about 8 millimeters across, vibrated in response to pressure differences of less than a billionth of the normal atmospheric pressure around it. Your ear is so sensitive that it can detect a pressure variation so small it moves the eardrum by a distance less than the diameter of a hydrogen atom. You are not receiving matter from the world, you are receiving patterns, deviations, whispers of organization in the ongoing roar of chaos. And now the visceral thing, the part that lives in your body right now. Put your hand on your chest and hum. Feel the vibration in your ribs, in your sternum, in the air in your lungs. What you are feeling is not the sound moving outward. It is you, the source, being shaken by the pattern before it leaves you. The molecules in your chest wall are not flying away toward a listener. They are doing the stadium wave, passing the instruction from cell to cell, bone to bone, filling your body with the echo of the disturbance you're creating. The sound you feel in your chest was never going to travel to your listener as the thing you feel. It was going to be translated, passed hand to hand, pattern by pattern, arriving not as the vibration in your bones, but as the vibration in their air. The same message, carried by completely different matter. You and your listener are never in physical contact. The information is. That is the only bridge. That is the only thread connecting your voice to any ear that has ever heard it. Here is the reframe. The fact that sound is a pattern rather than a substance is not a diminishment. It is a promotion. Patterns are more robust than substances. Patterns can be encoded and re-encoded and translated from one medium to another, from air to eardrum to fluid in the cochlea to electrical signal in the auditory nerve, without losing the essential information. The pattern survives translation because the pattern is the thing, and the medium is just the current host. And this is why music can make you cry. Not because molecules from a violin traveled across a concert hall and entered your body, but because a pattern, originating in the intention of a composer, encoded in the motion of a bow, translated through wood and air and the tiny bones of your middle ear, arrived as a configuration of neural firing in your brain, and your brain recognized it as meaningful. The meaning survived every translation, across every medium, through every handoff of the pattern from one set of molecules to the next. The music didn't travel, the meaning did. Every sound ever heard was a pattern passing through matter it never owned. If this twisted your brain a little bit, good. That means it's working. I'll see you in the next one.